You have spent your entire life being told that intelligence is something simple, a number on a page, a grade on a test, a diploma framed on a wall. You've been told that if you score well, if you talk well, if you know facts and answers, then you are intelligent. But what if all of that, every assumption you've carried like a badge of honor, is only the surface of something far deeper, far more consequential, and far more dangerous? Let me ask you something sincere, something that many people never voice out loud. Have you ever felt like your mind operates on a different frequency than the people around you, yet somehow you still feel stuck? Like there's an internal mechanism you can feel turning, but you don't have the manual for it. Like you notice patterns others don't, yet somehow those same people still seem to control outcomes you want. If so, that's because intelligence, the real kind, does not function as a unitary thing. It is not one thing to be measured. It is layered, like the strata of the earth, each layer deeper than the last, each layer shaped by different forces. This video is not about school definitions, it's not about IQ tests, and it's not about memorizing facts. This is about how intelligence actually operates in the real world, the world where people decide who leads and who follows, who reacts and who advances, who commands and who complies. We're going to explore 7 hidden layers of intelligence, but not as a judgment, not as a ranking of worth, and certainly not as a psychological test you can complete in 10 minutes. This is a mirror, and mirrors don't always show the parts of us we want to admire. Sometimes they show the parts we need to confront. Let's be honest, you can be well educated and still operate at the most superficial layer of intelligence. You can speak elegantly and still be driven by reaction instead of choice. You can know a lot and still be powerless in the game of life. Why? Because intelligence doesn't start with information. It starts with awareness. Plato spoke of shadows on the wall. Jung spoke of the unconscious steering the conscious self. Machiavelli, perhaps the most practical mind on human relations ever written, understood that most people think they are guided by truth, but in fact are guided by comfort. And comfort, the craving for what feels safe, is one of the most effective traps a mind can fall into. Here's the critical point. The first layer of intelligence is not a measurement of capacity, it is a measurement of consciousness. Most people think they are aware, but they are asleep inside a script. They respond to stimuli, they obey the momentum of habit, they follow instructions louder than they listen to their own reasoning. They wake up, they consume, they react, and they return to comfort, never pausing long enough to ask whether the framework they live within is their own choice or a borrowed system handed to them by culture, by expectation, by fear. This first layer, the most populous of all, is the layer of the adrift mind, the mind that flows with the current because it has never learned to swim upstream. It obeys input, not awareness. It believes that being told what is true is the same as thinking what is true. Ask yourself a question right now, silently. When something goes wrong in your life, do you automatically place the blame outside yourself on circumstances, on other people, on luck, before you examine your own roles, choices, and responses? Do you find yourself repeating what others say because it feels safer than thinking for yourself? If so, you are standing at the gates of the first layer. The first layer does not signify stupidity, far from it. The adrift mind can be brilliant in the conventional sense. It may hold degrees, titles, credentials, even prestige. But brilliance in this layer is shallow, a reflection of what has already been defined for it, not what it has discovered from within. This is the intelligence that believes maps are the territory, that rules are truth, that popularity is validation. It is the intelligence that hears consensus as wisdom. It is the intelligence that mistakes comfort for clarity. Machiavelli understood this before most philosophical traditions did. The majority of men are guided not by truth, but by what is easiest and most comforting to their senses. In other words, most people don't think because they are afraid of what honest thinking demands. The fewer demands you place on your own mind, the less responsibility you carry for the outcomes of your life. The first layer is not about what you know, it is about whether you listen to yourself at all. So take a moment right now and honestly ask inwardly, when you face complexity, not convenience, do you shrink back into familiar patterns, or do you pause long enough to think for yourself? Because this is the doorway, and beyond it lies something infinitely more powerful. Before we dive deeper into the next layer, the one that awakens when someone stops merely reacting and starts noticing patterns, I want you to really feel this. Most people think they are awake. Very few actually are. And the moment you realize the distinction, you can no longer pretend it doesn't matter. Once the adrift mind begins to stir, something unfamiliar takes shape. Awareness not of truth, but of the performance of truth. This is where the second layer of intelligence begins, the layer of the echo. The echo is not asleep like the adrift. It wants to be awake. It craves insight, but it doesn't yet have its own. So, it imitates. This layer is seductive. It can look, sound, and even behave like real intelligence. It uses big words. It cites philosophers. It joins the right conversations. But underneath, the echo is terrified, not of being wrong, but of being exposed. See, the echo doesn't want to think. It wants to be seen as someone who thinks. It doesn't develop ideas, it collects them, like a gallery of borrowed thoughts, arranged for admiration. This layer is everywhere. In classrooms, in comment sections, in boardrooms, people trying to sound intelligent, hoping that if they repeat what smart people say, they'll be perceived as one of them. But intelligence borrowed is not intelligence owned. Carl Jung warned us, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent. But in this case, the burden is the unlived mind, not just of a parent, but of a teacher, an influencer, an echo chamber. The echo speaks someone else's truth, louder than it listens to its own. Here's how you can recognize this layer. When you speak, do you feel the urge to impress or to express? Do you argue to understand or to be right? Do you quote ideas that stirred something in you, or ones you think will make you look smart? If your intelligence feels performative, you are in this layer. It doesn't make you fake, it makes you early in the process. You've moved beyond the automatic, but you haven't yet moved inward. The echo relies on external scripts, social scripts, intellectual scripts, moral scripts, and that's the trap. It becomes a mimic of sophistication, mistaking performance for power. It builds walls of complex vocabulary around shallow insight, and worst of all, the echo often believes it's better than the adrift. It looks down on those still lost in the first layer, failing to see that it too is still asleep, just wearing a more expensive mask. This is where the third layer begins, when someone realizes that imitation, no matter how elegant, will never lead to autonomy. A new kind of intelligence starts to take form, strategic intelligence. This third layer is not interested in applause. It's not focused on performance or perception. It cares about what works. It is cold, focused, practical. It sees the world not as a theater to perform in, but as a system to be understood. This is the intelligence of the tactician, the one who moves from idea to impact, from knowledge to leverage. The tactician watches silently while others debate morality or popularity. They're not asking, what sounds right? They're asking, what gets results? For them, intelligence is not a badge, it's a tool. It has weight, utility, consequences. This is the layer where critical thinking truly begins. Not to win arguments, but to win in reality. You'll know you've reached this stage when your curiosity becomes sharper, when you no longer seek validation, but function. You start asking questions like, why does this system reward certain behaviors? What fear drives this person's decision? How do incentives shape belief? The tactician doesn't just observe, they calculate. But this intelligence, for all its clarity, has its own shadow. It becomes detached, impersonal, even manipulative. Because when you can see every angle, every weakness, every motive, it becomes hard to care. You stop connecting, you start managing, and that's where many remain. Powerful, yes. Respected, perhaps, but cold, alone, and mistrusted. Because while the tactician understands systems, they often forget people. So what comes next? The fourth layer of intelligence is not deeper calculation, it's ownership. It's when a person decides to move from observer to operator, to step into the spotlight, not to be admired, but to act. This is the command layer, where the tactician hides behind analysis. The operator exposes themselves to risk. They lead, they fail, they decide. This is the layer of those who build teams, take responsibility, initiate movements. And what separates the operator from the tactician is skin in the game. They're not just moving ideas on a board. They're accountable. They are in it. Operators understand something profound. No amount of intelligence matters if you don't take action. In this layer, intelligence becomes embodied. It becomes presence. But presence is heavy. Leadership demands energy, clarity, and conviction. And here's the trap. If you lose your sense of self in the weight of others' expectations, if you attach your identity to your image, you begin to burn out. You lose the very clarity that made you powerful. So what comes after the leader, the builder, the commander? A colder, quieter figure, the one who realizes that the loudest power isn't the most effective. It's the power that works in silence. The fifth layer of intelligence is hidden behind the curtains of influence, invisible but undeniable. While the operator commands the stage, this figure stands in the dark, pulling the strings. This is the layer of the strategist, manifesting in the archetype of the ghost. The ghost is not interested in attention. They understand a truth the operator hasn't yet grasped. Visibility is vulnerability. Here, intelligence transforms into subtlety. The ghost no longer needs to argue, convince, or even lead from the front. They design environments where people choose to move in the direction they've planned, without ever realizing they were led. In a world obsessed with personal branding, the ghost erases their fingerprints. They're not interested in fame. They want influence. And true influence doesn't announce itself. It seeps into decisions, values, culture, until what was once a suggestion feels like a shared truth. Their intelligence is predictive. While others react, the ghost anticipates. They notice the shift in tone before a crisis erupts. They sense when loyalty starts to fade, before it's ever spoken. They detect the fault lines beneath polite conversations, and know exactly when to push, pull, or vanish. To most, this seems manipulative, cold, and perhaps it is. But the ghost knows one thing for certain. People resist control, but surrender willingly to belief. They aren't interested in bending wills. They shape narratives. They're not just strategists of systems, they're engineers of meaning. And yet, even this layer has its limits. To stay hidden is to stay dependent on the structures that exist. You may influence the system, but you're still operating within it. This is what separates the ghost from the next evolution. The sixth layer, the architect. While the ghost manipulates existing frameworks, the architect builds new ones. They are creators of order, sculptors of structure, designers of unseen blueprints that determine how power, belief, and behavior move in society. They don't argue within institutions, they create them. The architect understands that influence is fleeting, but infrastructure is eternal. Want to change how people behave? Don't preach. Design the rules. Want to shape belief? Don't shout louder. Create the stories they grow up in. The architect sees what others miss. That intelligence isn't just thinking well, it's constructing realities that outlive the builder. While the operator leads the team, the architect creates the game they're playing. This is the kind of intelligence that governs cultures, ideologies, and paradigms, often without being noticed. Because the highest power doesn't feel like power at all. It feels like just the way things are. And that's what makes this layer so dangerous. The architect can become a prisoner of their own creation. When the system falters, they feel personally responsible. Their identity becomes entangled with the success of the structures they've built. They risk becoming tyrants of their own vision, unable to adapt, unwilling to let go. This brings us to the final layer, the rarest, the quietest, the hardest to reach. A layer not built through mastery of others, but mastery of self. This is the seventh layer of intelligence, the sovereign. The sovereign has no need to control, impress, or design. They don't manipulate narratives, lead armies, or build systems, because they've transcended the one thing that still bound the others. Attachment. To control is to need. To lead is to rely. To build is to believe in permanence. The sovereign has shed all three. They are not apathetic. They are independent, not in the external sense, but internally. Their intelligence is defined not by what they know, but by what they've let go of. While others climb for visibility, power, impact, the sovereign walks away, not as escape, but as victory. They understand a profound truth. Power that cannot be lost is power you no longer need. Their silence isn't empty, it's full of presence. Their stillness isn't fear, it's precision. Their humility isn't weakness, it's clarity. They don't fear contradiction, chaos, or change. They move through them with grace, because nothing inside them resists the movement of life. The sovereign doesn't dominate the system. They are free from it. Not everyone will reach this layer, not because they can't, but because the cost is high. It demands that you die to every version of yourself that needed something from the world to feel whole. But those who arrive here, they don't follow, they don't lead, they are. So now the question returns to you. Now that the architecture of these 7 layers has been laid bare, the mirror turns back to you. This isn't just a hierarchy, it's a cycle of internal evolution, and every single one of us, at some point, moves through these stages, whether we realize it or not. Let's return to where it begins, the dormant, the one who moves through life in reaction, not reflection. Their world is shaped entirely by external inputs, media, peers, authority, without ever questioning where their thoughts originated. They may appear functional, even successful, but their compass isn't their own. This is not stupidity. This is sleep, and waking up from it, it's painful. Because the moment you become aware of the world's illusions, you also become aware of your participation in them. But most don't wake up cleanly. They fall into the next trap, the mimic. You read the right books, quote the right thinkers, speak with borrowed conviction. It feels like growth. But in truth, it's still external. You're not thinking, you're echoing. The hardest part of this layer is that it looks enlightened. It wins approval. It sounds wise. But as Carl Jung warned, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. The mimic avoids the soul by performing intellect. The real shift begins with discomfort. The day you stop caring about sounding right and start caring about being real, that's when the calculator emerges. Here, intelligence becomes dangerous. The calculator uses knowledge as leverage. They see angles, weigh moves, and make decisions not from morality, but from results. They're not here to be admired, they're here to win. This layer is seductive. It rewards you, makes you efficient, powerful, respected, but it also isolates you. Because when everything is a transaction, you start treating people like tools. The cost of intelligence here is emotional detachment. But if the calculator begins to see leadership not as manipulation, but as service, a new energy arises. The operator leads, builds, carries the burden. They stop maneuvering and start committing. Their words become weight. Their actions create ripples. They are no longer spectators, they are causes in the world. The challenge here, the emotional load, because when you truly lead, every mistake, every failure, every consequence is yours to hold. Many break under this weight. They retreat into lower layers. But those who endure begin to sense another level, one where the need to be seen disappears. They become the strategist, the ghost. This is where intelligence turns invisible. Influence replaces command. Patience replaces urgency. You no longer act to be recognized. You design to be effective. You detach from identity, but in doing so, you risk detaching from self. When every connection becomes a calculation, when every word is curated, when your presence is a performance, you start to forget who you are when no one is watching. That's why some rise further, not through control, but through creation. They become the architect, the one who builds systems, stories, and structures that shape others long after they've left the room. Their intelligence is macro, strategic, enduring. They understand that legacy is built not through effort, but through systems that replace effort. But legacy is still attachment. Systems, no matter how brilliant, eventually fail or change. And when identity is tied to creation, suffering is inevitable. Only when this is seen clearly, deeply, can one approach the rarest form of intelligence, the sovereign. The sovereign no longer needs the world to reflect anything back. They don't seek validation, legacy, or impact. They are rooted, silent, whole. The sovereign sees through the game, but doesn't reject it. They can play it or walk away from it, and neither choice affects their peace. Their intelligence is not loud, not strategic. It is pure presence. They no longer measure success in influence, status, or creation. They measure it in clarity. Where you see ambiguity, they see patterns. Where you feel fear, they feel alignment. Where others grasp, they release. So here is the truth. Each layer serves a purpose. Each is a teacher, but no layer is a destination. The moment you believe you've arrived, you've stopped growing. So ask yourself, which layer are you really operating from? Not the one you want to be in, not the one you talk about, the one your life reveals. What do your patterns say? How do you respond to challenge, to doubt, to silence? These answers aren't meant to shame. They're meant to awaken. You cannot skip layers. But you can climb them if you're willing to burn the illusions that hold you. And here's the paradox. The path to the top. It starts at the bottom, with brutal honesty. Now that you can see the climb, from the adrift to the mimic to the calculator, from the operator to the strategist, the architect, and finally to the sovereign, it's time to confront the most difficult truth of all. No layer is a plateau. None are an endpoint. Every label, every archetype, every stage is a reflection, not a destination. They are mirrors of awareness, not markers of completion. They show how you operate, not who you are at your core. Many people watch videos like this and think, I want to be higher. But the real challenge is not wanting to be higher, it's wanting to be honest. Honesty is not soft. Honesty is not convenient. Honesty is not flattering. The truth, the real truth, is awkward, uncomfortable, unforgiving, and often unwelcome. You might think you are at a high layer. You might say you get it, but life reveals what you actually embody. Because when pressure comes, when fear arrives, when comfort is threatened, when loss appears, when failure stares you in the face, that's when your intelligence shows its face. In crisis, the adrift reacts, the mimic parrots answers, the calculator plans, the operator acts, the strategist influences, the architect constructs, and the sovereign breathes. Not because they don't feel, but because they no longer react. Not because they are empty, but because they are whole. This is the intelligence that transcends layers, not by accumulation, but by integration. The sovereign understands something most never learn. Power is not what you control, it's what you no longer need to. Power is not about being seen, it's about seeing clearly. Power is not about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself. This is not arrogance, this is autonomy. And autonomy is the root of every true leader, every decisive thinker, every person whose life isn't blown this way and that by the winds of opinion, approval, or fear. But I need to make something unmistakably clear. Intelligence alone does not make you sovereign. Wisdom does. And wisdom isn't about knowing more. Wisdom is about seeing more, especially what others refuse to see in themselves. The layers we discussed are not colors on a map you check off. They are modes of consciousness you inhabit, and you can oscillate between them with every choice you make. A person can behave like a sovereign with one decision, and shrink back into the calculator the next. Intelligence must be practiced, not performed. So here is the real question, the one your mind must wrestle with. Are you climbing to escape yourself, or to discover who you actually are? Because the moment your motivation becomes avoiding discomfort, avoiding responsibility, or avoiding isolation, you are not climbing, you are running from truth. And truth always catches up. The layers are not ladders out of life, they are lenses into life. The question is not, which layer are you in, but are you aware of why you operate as you do? Are your actions driven by clarity, or by fear disguised as logic? Because you can think you're awake, but the ultimate test of intelligence isn't thought, it's responsibility in action. You know you have reached a higher layer, not when others tell you, but when your own life's events stop surprising you, not because you have all the answers, but because your mind has stopped fleeing from questions. So now let me leave you with this, not as a casual thought, but as a reflection that demands confrontation. If your intelligence could speak, what would it whisper about the life you're living right now? Not what you hope it would say, not what you wish it would confirm, but what it would actually reveal. And when you hear that whisper clearly, you will know what you must become.